Hey, how you doing?
Yeah, I'm good. How are you doing?
Pretty well. So yeah, I just started it, so it's not doing a test or anything, but I think we can hear each other, so that's good. Um,
Okay.
so I mean, we'll go into it in a moment here, but I should probably get to know you a little bit. Where are you from, actually? I'm from Sacramento, in the United States. How about yourself?
I'm from Chennai in India.
Oh, cool. Okay. Yeah, I've seen a couple of you guys from
Uh,
India on here. It's fun to talk to you guys.
yeah.
So
So,
so
do you
so
want to know anything more about me?
Sure, yeah. What do you got? What do you like? What do you get to do? What do you like? What should I know about you?
That's a difficult question. I like playing chess, you said, and I'm a software engineer.
Hmm.
Then, what do you have to know about me? I don't know uh, if I know any, I'll tell you.
Okay. Yeah.
Mm,
I'm a researcher. I like
mm,
chess. I haven't played it in a while, but I did like chess for a while. And I like sports,
mm,
so you'll hear me use a soccer analogy or a football analogy or something like that, whenever I can.
okay. So, yeah, after our first debate, I tried to take a lot of points to convince you. I took some points. Let's see if I'm able to convince you or not. So, first of all, to clarify on the topic we are debating, again, you're saying that we cannot determine that, right? I mean, we cannot know that if we have purpose or not. Still, you're not arguing on the side that we have purpose.
Right.
Okay.
I don't know if we have purpose or if we don't, but simply that I would say that because we are finite, it's kind of an irrelevant question because we're not great enough to know the answer to that question in the first place.
Mm. So for this point, I can take gravity for example. I can prove that we have no purpose to the certainty that that we believe in gravity. We believe in gravity with some certainty, right?
Yeah.
With that certainty, I'll be able to prove you that we have no purpose. So is that acceptable for you?
Yeah, sure. I mean, if you could show that there is a 95 to 99% certainty that humanity has
Mm.
zero purpose and that we can know this, then yeah, I would say you should win.
Okay, so that is good. So let me start with you said that if there is something called infinite being and it can only know all the truth, right? Uh, let's talk about truth here. Like, is there anything called truth, or there also we are assuming that there is something called the truth? Should it be there? I mean, should the truth be there? Is there anything called truth? Or do we know about that, or we are just assuming it's there?
Well, there are things we can verify to human knowledge. And in my comment to you, I called this lesser knowledge. So there's the concept of greater knowledge or absolute truth, which would be that somewhere in the universe there's a metaphysical answer to everything in life. Like green is better than blue on a ranking system, or The Godfather is a better movie than Casablanca. That there is an actual objective answer, that there is a God, that there is a specific way to worship him, all of these things, that there is a metaphysical accurate answer. That would be greater knowledge. And such greater knowledge, I would say, would have to be known by an infinite being, as opposed to lesser knowledge, which we can know as humans. Lesser knowledge would be something that we can verify to human certainty. And we discussed in the last debate the reasons why human knowledge has flaws because our senses are limited and we are reliant on those senses.
Yeah, we assume here that there is something called absolute truth, and it knows whether green is better than blue or Godfather is better than another movie. So, should there be something called absolute truth, or that is our assumption? I'm asking that. I mean, should there
Oh,
be any color better than the other color, or should it not be?
I don't
Maybe
know.
we don't know, right?
I honestly don't know if absolute truth exists. It's possible that it does, but unless we were to be grand enough to understand it in the first place, we shouldn't say it does exist. It's possible that it exists, but we don't know that.
So we are not able to answer that question also. We are uncertain about that too.
Yeah.
So a lot of uncertainties there. And I propose that my view that purpose these questions with the framework, like right now we have like we think we have a society, we have morality, and we are following some rules, we are going after some our purpose. This, I feel that this creates a lot of problem, and this doesn't solve a lot of problem, and this is not able to answer many questions, like hypothetical questions. For example, you are not able to answer if there is absolute truth or not. And I mean, I can even come up to some small questions. You might tell that this is a very big question, so we can't answer. I can even ask. I have some questions that our system able to solve. But this is a system we have, right? We think we have a purpose, and we are going after something, but this creates a lot of problem, and this does not answer a lot of questions. But if we assume that we have no purpose at all, that doesn't create any problem, and that answers most of our questions. So that is a point I'm going to say now. And do you want to tell me that what questions that the current system is not answering, and what questions my system is answering?
Well, your system can't answer it, because I mean, see, here's the thing: you're claiming that if we make an assumption and claim that that assumption is truth, then we will have all these advantages, which might be true. I'm not going to say that you might have practical advantages to choosing nihilism. There might be practical advantages, but that doesn't mean it's accurate. We're questioning the accuracy, whether or not there actually can be an answer to this, and whether or not humans can answer this question. And what you're saying is we can assume it, but assuming doesn't mean it's accurate. How can you prove to a reasonable degree of certainty that humans have zero purpose?
Yeah, this is one way of proving, I think, because in mathematics we do it all the time. We assume one thing and we derive it. If the answer is consistent with all other thing we have, we can accept that as a right answer. That's what I'm trying to do here. I'm assuming one thing, and that does solve all the questions, and that seems to be a very much consistent thing than the other thing.
But
How can you say that this is a wrong way of
well, wait a
proving
minute, wait a
things?
minute. It doesn't, because you're misapplying that, because what you're saying is if we in mathematics, if you say if we assume x, then y, and then you can reverse check it. If y, then x. So you can get there, and it adds up. But what you're saying is if we assume there is no purpose to the universe, then there will be practical advantages. But just because there's practical advantages doesn't prove x. That just means it might be better to live that way. Just because it's better to live that way doesn't mean the original premise was accurate. It just means it's practical.
Well, okay. You're saying that it's better. I mean, it's more practical, and it's better to live that way. It's not just better to live that way. Even the questions of universe, it better answers the questions of universe. It's not. Are you there?
Yeah, I just reloaded and I can see you again. Sorry, keep going.
Yeah, it answers the questions of universe. It's not about humans at all. So in that case, I'm making an assumption, and I'm reducing the problems. Like, how can I say, like, even gravity. Okay, let's talk about gravity. Gravity. That's what they do. They just derive the formula, and they see the consistency, how the formula works according to real world observations. They come up with the formula and then apply that formula to the real world situations. If it is very much consistent to the real world situations, if you put in to the formula and it gives the right answer every time, now that is the right formula, right? That's how they come up. I mean, Newton came up, that's how, but he had a small flaw now, and then Einstein patched it up. So even that's how Newton came up. That's what I'm saying. This is a right way of proving things. You come up with something and you check the consistency of that formula with the real world happening. And if it seems to be consistent and more consistent than any other formulas given by other scientists, now this is the formula that we have to follow, because this is more consistent with the real world. This answers a lot of questions. This formula answers a lot of questions, and this formula says maybe in the case of atomic model, the wave function says where the electron exists. If you input the formula that the time, it will say that what will be the velocity of a particular electron and what will be the position of a particular electron. Now this formula is able to give us. So how will they check? They will check the real world. If the scientists come up with a formula, they'll check the consistency of that formula with the real world, and if it's so consistent, then all the before formulas, now that is the formula that we have to follow, right? Or am I not making any sense?
I mean, yeah, it makes sense. It doesn't answer the question, because let's say that there's a good worldview that there is no purpose to human life. And yet the exact same thing could be said about the opposite worldview, that if we live with the assumption that a creator created the universe and this creator made it so that everything we experience has a purpose, well, that will all add up. If you talk to Christians, they think everything adds into this worldview. Hindus think that everything adds into this worldview. It is equally as consistent as if you believed there was no worldview. That there was no purpose. It's an irrelevant point. Just because you believe that it's consistent doesn't mean it's accurate. That's not a proof for showing something is accurate.
Yeah, no. Now I'm going to lay, let's discuss about some examples, some questions, whether in which my system is consistent or your system is consistent. We'll go to that part. I'm just saying that this is the right way of approaching the problem. Like if I can prove that my system is more consistent in solving problems and answering questions, we can consider that my system is right. If your system is considered, so I'm just, so right
No,
now
that's simply not true. Just because it might help you figure things out doesn't mean the original premise is accurate. That's what I'm saying. You're saying that because it will have practical advantages for how you view other things, therefore we should consider it correct. That's not true. Just because, let's say that you join a cult, and that cult has wonderful effects on your life. It's going to help you smile a lot more. You're going to be happy inside. You're going to have all the food you want. You're going to have all the girls you could possibly want. All of these advantages, it makes so much sense. It adds up. It's consistent. But the premise of the cult was wrong. So just because it helps and just because it's consistent doesn't make it correct. In the same way, when you're trying to say that we know there is no purpose because it adds up and it's consistent, no, that doesn't prove it at all.
Okay, let me ask you a simple, not a universe scale that we are we are uncertain kind type of question. Have you heard about this trolley problem?
No, I don't think so.
Okay, that basically asks you that you are you are in the driver's seat of the train, and the train is going in a track, and you see 5 people are tied up in the track. You know that, right?
Yeah. Sorry, I thought you said Tronny problem. I thought you were talking about astronomy. No, yeah, trolley problem. Yeah. Trolley problems are very important. Yeah.
So and there is in another track there is only one person tied up, and you have the control to switch the track.
Right.
Okay. Do you think this problem is unanswerable, or can you answer this question? Because this can happen in real life. We have to take a decision. We have to have a framework. You have to tell me you have a framework. Someone has to tell me what I have to do, and then so that I can follow that, right? That's what we do with the government, with the morality. We have rules. I should not kill other people. We have rules, right? So you have to teach me some rules at this place. How should I behave at that place? Do you have an answer for that? Because these are all the problems that the system have. We think we have some purpose and we have to follow some rules. These are the problems. They cannot answer these questions. So that's flawed. That's a flawed system. That's what I'm coming to say. So can you answer the question first?
Well, here's the thing. When humans create laws, or when humans create rules, or when humans follow systems of morality, they are not necessarily objective truth. That just because we created a rule to try and deal with a trolley problem doesn't mean we correctly answered the trolley problem. It's possible that if we, let's say there's a God, and let's say that we ask this God, what's the answer to a trolley problem? And God says, the answer to a trolley problem is 17 and 3/4. And we go, what? That wasn't even one of the options. And God says, yes, because you didn't have the capable understanding to know that the correct answer is 17 and 3/4. And the fact of the matter is, we could never know. We don't have the capability to answer that. But what we can do when it comes to a trolley problem is we can answer that to the best effect possible for humanity. We don't know necessarily if it's correct, but we can still create rules that, hey, for the good of humanity, we're going to try and save the most amount of people. We're going to try and create the best amount of quality of life for all the people we have, just because that has the best effect for all of us. That doesn't mean it's correct. It just means it's what we choose to do because of the practical benefits. It says I'm waiting for you to start the debate. I'm gonna go. I think I lost you. You still around? I am tagging you in the thing. I reloaded my computer and I can still log in and I see myself, but I don't see you, so I'm tagging you now. Oh, you can see and hear me? Oh, okay. I cannot see or hear you. It says waiting for you to start the debate. So maybe if you reload, then you'll be able to. Or at least I'll be able to see and hear you. Oh, hey. Hey, there he is. Hey, welcome back.
Okay. Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah. Still, I'm not getting your video, but I'm getting your audio. That's okay. I think it's not a problem.
Oh, okay, okay. Yeah, I see myself, and then I went into the lounge and I started it, and I saw myself. So I think my video should be working. But either way, it should be good. Okay. So did you hear everything that I said there?
No, I only heard the last part of it. I didn't hear the first part of it. So can
Okay. What was it? What was I talking about?
I asked you about the trolley problem. How I have to make a decision.
Right. Yeah. So with trolley problems, we can answer things to the best degree of human knowledge, and usually with that what we would do is we would come to practical understandings that would have the best possible. Yeah. So we would come to a practical idea. So, for instance, we would choose that quality of life would be something that we would value, and then we would try and have the most amount of people be benefited, and we would do things that benefit us in the best sort of way. But the fact of the matter is, we don't know with certainty that any of these are correct. We don't know that we have chosen the correct answer to the trolley problem. And one of the things that I had mentioned was perhaps if we were to ever have a conversation with someone who is greater than our universe, with a god, and we say to this god, "Hey, what was the answer to that trolley problem?" So should I have saved the one person, or should I have flipped the switch and 5 people die? And God says the answer to that question is 17 and 3/4. And we go, what? That doesn't make any sense. That's not one of the options. And God says, yes. because you didn't understand that the answer was so much greater than you possibly could have comprehended because you're finite beings. That's the thing. We don't have the capability to answer that sort of question. We can answer questions and determine what has the best practical advantages according to human knowledge. But that doesn't mean we can answer questions that are greater than us. We don't have any access to know if we specifically have an objective purpose. We can have purposes that work out better for us, but these aren't objective purposes. These are subjective, preferential purposes.
Now the problem. Oh my God, I'm hearing my voice itself.
Yeah, I hear you.
Hello. Okay. Hello. I'm just testing my mic. Hello. Okay. This is the problem I see with your argument. I mean, the God might say that answer to the trolley problem is 17 3/4, and the God might say the answer to gravity is just 1.34. And why do you come up with the formula as G into M1 into M2 divided by R square? So the answer to the God might say the gravity answer to the gravity is A B C D. That might be the answer to the gravity.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, formula for the gravity. So if you, that's what I'm saying. I can prove to the certainty that which you prove gravity. Now if you're putting for this argument, I can put for this argument for gravity also. So I can prove you as much as certainty with we have proven gravity. Okay. Does it make any sense?
No, yeah, absolutely. I agree. And so if your goal is to prove that humanity has a purpose to the best knowledge we can master, which is flawed in the first place, then sure, you can do that. And I would agree with you if you can show with 95 to 99% certainty that that's the case. But the only argument you put forward so far was we have better practical advantages when we believe it this way. But just because there's better practical advantages doesn't mean it's actually accurate in the first place.
It's not about practical advantages. It's about answering the questions. We have come up with a formula for gravity, not for our practical advantages. It answered the questions about the universe. Before deriving that formula, we did not have a formula that explains gravity. Now the scientists came up with the formula, and we tested it with tested the formula for the consistency with the real life situation, and the formula seems to explain a lot of things. That is how we were able to say that, okay, this formula is good, we can take that as a formula for gravity. That's how we prove things in science, and that is the way I'm taking here. Like, you take both of our worldview, and then try to fit it into the universe. Which fits more? Whichever fits more, it should be taken as the truth as right now, because that with our human knowledge, whichever fits more, we have to take that as true and wait for finding the absolute truth. That's what we have to do, right?
In the early times, the Egyptians believed in a sun god. The Druids believed in multiple gods. The Greeks, the Romans, they all had all these multiple gods they believed in, because that was the best explanation they could see for their world. Fact of the matter is, they didn't have enough information to come to a conclusion, so they came to idiotic conclusions. The better and more logical answer that they would have reached had they been more advanced would be, oh, I don't understand how the sun comes up in the morning. Maybe in the future I will. But for the moment, I'm going to admit I don't know how that works. But instead, they made the inaccurate, illogical conclusion to say the sun is a god. You are suggesting the same thing. Because you don't fully understand it, you say, well, we're just going to have the best answer we can have. Well, the more rational answer would simply be, we don't fully know right now. And we don't. And you're saying, I mean, it kind of works out and it kind of benefits you, and you can have these, it's consistent. But in the same way that if you presuppose the accuracy of Christianity, it's consistent. You can hear Nelson, you can hear other people on QallOut who do that. They presuppose the accuracy of their religion, and then their worldview is fully consistent. It adds up. Everything comes together. And they go, oh, see, that's another piece. And see how it proves God. It doesn't. But they feel like it does. In the same way that if you start with your presupposition, you will also have the same exact problem. It's not a proof.
Well, you said this thing, right? Like maybe 200, 300 years back, Romans thought that they have a lot of gods, and some people thought that the sun is a god. And now they all seem to be dumb to us, right?
Mhm. Yeah, we
Yeah.
recognize it. Move forward.
And now you say that I know gravity is certain for 100%. Now this is the formula for gravity. Like Einstein has given me the formula. This is what is gravity. Now you're saying what I think in 200, 300 years people will say about you.
About me? You mean about like me believing in gravity, or believing in certain things that we might move
Yeah.
forward? We might realize, oh, gravity was actually completely mistaken. That would be where I would say, oh, you know what? What we had at the time, all of the information that we had, led us to a reasonable conclusion that we could verify to a reasonable degree of human certainty. But when we advanced, we found that that was based on a flawed reasoning in the first point. That's different than what the Egyptians were doing the sun god. They didn't have a reasonable amount of information. There was nothing for them to go, there is a 95 to 99% degree of proof that the sun is a god. They just chose to believe that it was a god. And then they made up stories based on that. There's a huge difference between looking at the evidence and going, look, when I stand up, I don't float off the earth. When this lamp on my desk is on my desk, it stays right here on my desk. It doesn't float away. We can say, when we look at all of that, there's a lot of evidence that suggests, according to the best amount of human knowledge, gravity exists. But we can't say, when we look at the available evidence, the sun is a god. We can say the sun exists, but it's a huge leap to then say the sun is a god.
Yeah. When we talk about gravity, like just I want to clarify here. I was always mentioning the formula for gravity. But you mentioned like we see gravity. Like when I stand up, I don't. I mean, I don't go up, and things always fall down. You talk about that when you talk about gravity. So are we talking about the same thing? Like I know that things are going to fall down, but I need to explain why it is falling down. So we need a formula, and Newton came up with the formula, and it was flawed even before Newton. I think Galileo came up with the formula, and even Aristotle thought something 2000 years back ago. And so the formula was is what I'm talking about. Since you believe in gravity, I take gravity as a comparison with our issue, so that I can prove with as much as certainty as gravity. So I'm talking about the formula, how they prove that formula. You believe in, if you believe in gravity, you have to believe in that formula. That formula explains gravity, why things fell down, why you're
Yeah.
not going up, why is moon rotating around the earth. So are you believing in that formula, or you're saying that, I mean, if I put something down, it goes down. I mean, something, leave something, it goes down. If I stand up, I'm not going up. That's what you mean by gravity, or you mean the formula?
Both. I mean, there's a formula for gravity, but the fact of the matter is, it's verifiable. We can test it. We can hypothesize, and then we can test it. And then with the test that we see, we go, yeah, okay, this is holding up x. When we multiply x by y, we get z. And when we multiply y by x, we also get z. So x times y equals z. So you can retest it. But okay, so what we got to come back to simple thing here. You are claiming that we know that the universe has no purpose, and you have presented nothing for that except that it works out when you think about it that way. But that's not even remotely a proof. That doesn't even get to 5%. You need to get to 95%. You aren't even at 5, because Christianity claims the same thing. So does any religion. Every single religion in the world says that their worldview means, therefore, we have this purpose, and it's consistent. That doesn't mean anything. Just because it's consistent isn't a proof.
No, that is the difference between Christianity and this, because they are consistent, but that is like presuppositional. Presuppositional. Yeah, that's what you said, because they assume on something, and if we question on that assumption, they can't answer. After that assumption, they can answer everything. So that is a problem with their theory, I think so. But here you're saying that
Well, yeah, but wait, I'm gonna butt in here, because you are
mm, mm.
presupposing that there is no purpose, and then you
No,
say, and this is consistent, which is exactly the same thing as Christianity, presupposing Christianity is existent, and then they say, and therefore this is our purpose. It's the same thing on the other side. Don't presuppose anything.
no, I'm not presupposing anything. I'm just following the way scientists follow to prove things. That is exactly what I see I'm doing. Do you not see that?
So okay, so here's the thing. What you're doing is you're creating a hypothesis. So a hypothesis, you would say, if it seems likely that there is no purpose to the universe, then blank. And but your then doesn't prove the if, because just because something is consistent does not prove that it actually was accurate in the first place. It's consistent, but that doesn't make it accurate. So that's the difference here. You need to show there is zero certainty or zero purpose to humanity. How do you know there is no purpose besides the fact that, oh, it's consistent?
Okay, well, I think this way of proving things is not working out, I guess. But I still think that this is the right way, because that's what they do with gravity and they do with our atom model, because that's consistent. But atom model is a great example. Do you believe what scientists say about this quantum mechanics, atoms, electrons, protons? Do you believe in that?
I'm not a scientist, so I'm not certain, but I assume so.
Yeah, I mean, even I'm not a scientist. I mean, I'm believing that just because the scientists are saying they're smarter than me,
Yeah.
and they exactly use this method because they cannot see the atom. They just come up with a model, and then they just prove that is what consistent with our observation. For example, initially they proved that the nucleus is positively charged because it has protons. In order to prove that, what they did was that was the helium ion, which was positive, and they threw this helium ion towards nucleus of some atom, and it always deviates from the atom. They didn't know why, so they come up with a conclusion. I'll say it in this way: they come up with an assumption that the nucleus should be positively charged, and then they try to make it consistent. Now the assumption is consistent because that is positively charged. The helium particle is also positively charged. They both repel each other, and it's going away from it. This is the proof they had. That's what at least I learned in the science. Maybe they would have had better proof. I think it's J.J. Thomson, I guess. He proved that nucleus is positively charged. This is what I read in the science book. So this is how they prove things. They just see I can go to him and ask, you don't even see the nucleus, how do you come up with a conclusion that nucleus is positively charged? You don't even see the nucleus. You're just did one experiment and you're assuming something, and it's consistent with your that one experiment. How does it make it true? But people believed that at the time. That is what people are doing right now with the gravity, with the atom model, even in the quantum field theory. That right now they are saying they don't answer a lot of questions. They don't know. The scientists simply don't know. Maybe probably in future they will tell us.
Right.
This is how science works. They just try to assume things and then try to be more consistent with the nature. So I took this as a way of proving my thing, and I think this is not working. So I have different things. I mean, I have different way of proving. I can switch on to that, but I'm just saying this. What do you say?
Those are scientific theories. Those aren't scientific laws. When you have a scientific law, you consider it verifiable. Scientific theories are ideas that we might eventually be able to prove. That there's a huge difference between those. Okay, so I'm going to quickly ask you a couple questions. How certain are you there is no God?
Like 99%, 99.9% to a very high degree of certainty.
How certain are you that the universe is logical?
By logical, you're meaning basically saying the universe is 100% logical.
How do you know?
Because I see it everywhere. Everywhere it's behaving logical.
What do you see it with?
Like it's always following a particular set of rules. If I throw a stone on another stone, the stone passes its energy to another stone. Every time I did that, it is doing that. So it is being it has some rules, and it's following the rules always. So that that laws is what I'm considering it as logical. It's always follows that laws.
How do you know that outside of this planet, all the planets and all the universe is logical?
Now I can ask the same question for gravity.
I don't know on the other planets. I know on this planet, based on what we see, that gravity works. But at least,
yeah, to that extent only, I can also prove my point.
No, that doesn't prove your point, though. That means you can only show things that appear accurate as far as this universe, but you can't know things as far as not even universe, planet. You can't know things about the greater universe. You don't have access to that knowledge because you aren't great enough to know that. That's part of the reason why I'm saying you would have to be bigger. You would have to know. In order to know, maybe it's possible that the Earth is the only logical planet on the Earth. You have in the universe. You have no way of knowing. You don't know this. You can't. You're acting like because logic, therefore blank. But you don't know that. You're acting like because you are certain that there is no God, and you're not even certain. It's possible that there is a God. If it's possible that there's a God, it's also possible that there is a creator, and that there's a purpose. There's so much of these things that you simply don't know. And the worst part of it all, when it comes to the logic of this, the only way you're coming to these answers is because of your senses. And yet, your senses, you have 0%, well, you have only one thing. You can either trust them or not trust them. And you have no basis for knowing that you can trust them. So you're saying, because I trust my senses, which is faith, because I have faith in my senses, and because I have faith that there is no God, and because I have faith that even though I don't know that the rest of the universe is logical, therefore, I am going to say that based on what I observe, there is no purpose to this universe. You don't know if you might have been created and led to believe something else. You don't know if you might actually be something else and been made to think that you are a human. You don't know if every other planet is actually completely chaotic and illogical. You don't know any of this. You have no grounds to come to a conclusion because you don't have enough information.
Well, Newton doesn't have enough information, but he came up with laws, not even theories, because you told that I was talking about theory. But and actually, I can counter argue that in many ways, because even then gravity should be a theory. You should not believe in gravity. I can say that also. And okay, let's take laws for example. Newton came up with laws, and you're saying that laws are something that is true. Newton didn't went to Mars. He doesn't know how it happens in Mars. Then how did he came up with the formula? I can just go to Newton and say that you're wrong, bro. Like, you don't know it for certain. Why should I believe you?
The vast majority of the Earth believes in a God, and they all believe that there is a purpose. When we call a logical universe, if there's a logical universe, that would suggest that there is a purpose to it, that they're fleeting toward anything. And you don't even know if it's a fully logical universe anyway. But even if it is, that more lends itself toward the concept of there being a purpose than there not being a purpose. We also don't have access to knowing if there's something that is greater than us that made us a purpose. We also don't know if our minds are being controlled and if we even have free will in the first place. We have no way of knowing that. We assume we have free will, and therefore you come to the conclusion that I don't see a purpose, therefore I don't have one. But it's also possible that you're being controlled in every single thing that you think, in which case, that's your purpose, to think whatever you're being controlled to think. You have no way of proving otherwise. And you have no way of proving that you are. There's no way of knowing yes or no on any of these things because you're limited to your understanding of the universe. Unless you were to escape your universe and look back on it, you wouldn't know.
Yeah, again, it's the same thing. Again, I think we have been talking the same thing. And you told one thing about that. I believe that I have free will, and then that is why I think that the universe doesn't have any purpose. Actually, I strongly think that universe should be deterministic. So that is why I'm thinking that universe doesn't have any purpose. And the problem with this argument I see is that your argument is I can say the same to Newton's laws and theory of gravitation, but you are believing on that. That is what I'm not able to understand. Whatever you said right now, I can say to Newton's laws and theory of gravitation, and you are believing that. And whenever I say something, you are coming with this argument. I can come with the same argument when you say that you believe in Newton's law.
No, there's a huge distinction between them. The distinction is when it comes to gravity, we believe it to a reasonable degree of human certainty. And it's based on what we can actually objectively perceive in the world, as opposed to making a greater statement about purpose, which is not based on observable things. It's based on what we believe about our futures. Let's talk about, there's a difference between future and past. We can observe through the past, everything has followed a system of gravity. When it comes to a future, that's what we're talking about with purpose. We don't have access to know what happens in the future. So it's completely separate to say gravity versus human purpose. One of them is observable and objective, the other is predictive.
Okay, so do you know for sure that tomorrow gravity will exist? Why not God decide to just take away the gravity? Uh,
I mean, I don't know for certain. I do have a reasonable degree of certainty, or I don't even know if I have a reasonable degree. I have a reasonable belief, reasonable faith that what has always been the case will continue to be the case. Although I have no way of knowing that for sure. But I would tend to put faith in that idea that gravity will still be here tomorrow.
okay. Do you think sun will come up tomorrow?
Based on the fact of history, we have seen that every single day I have been alive, the sun has come up. Based on observable written testimony of anybody else, the sun has come up every day they've been alive. So I have reasonable degree of belief that it will continue to be this way. Although it's entirely possible that it won't. It's possible that I don't see the future and that the future is going to change. Yeah.
So yeah, in the case of sun and in the case of gravity, you have observed it for a long time, and the universe has behaved in the same way. So you assume that the universe will behave in the same way tomorrow also, right?
Yeah.
Okay, let's take this as a way, but we have only 2 minutes more. And I've seen I've seen some I've seen the past, and I see that there is no purpose for anything. So okay, okay, if I am able to prove that there is no purpose in the past, will you accept that there is no purpose for the future, purpose for us in the future?
I mean, you still haven't made a single argument that shows there was no purpose. You just said it kind of adds up, but you've never shown why, and you've never.
No. I'm telling. No. I'm just letting the framework itself. I'm not getting inside itself. So it's that way of proving enough for you, because you're not agreeing on the.
Yeah. If you can prove there was no purpose ever throughout history, then it would seem likely that in the future there will also be no purpose.
Oh, okay. But we have only 2 minutes left. Okay, I'll talk about the second law of thermodynamics once again. Like, you know about second law of thermodynamics, right? Entropy keeps on increases, right?
Yeah.
And do you know what happens when the entropy like reaches to the maximum? Like, human life will not be possible, and earth will not be there, sun will not be there. Everything will be a mess. That's an irreversible mess, and it will be nothing can exist. There's no meaningful thing. Whatever you create like big rockets, you create an artificial intelligence. It's not going to exist. It's going to break down, and it's going to be a complete mess which you cannot rearrange. Even energy cannot be tapped efficiently from that mess. And why are you doing all this with all these things with a purpose, when the ultimate thing determined by the science what happened is going to happen to universe is what is a mess. In mess is what going to happen to the universe. That is what science says. Then why are you doing all these things with a purpose?
You don't know.
Yeah, these are the questions that your purposeful worldview does not able to answer. That's what I'm saying.
I didn't try to answer. I don't know if we have a purpose or not. I didn't claim to know if we have a purpose or not. Christians and religious people would say that they know that all of that was purposed by their creator. I wouldn't say I know. I would say there might have been a reason why we were doing all these things, or there might not have. But I don't know, and I think it's kind of silly to say we know all of that was completely pointless. We don't know that.
Okay, so this entropy example can prove that 99% certain that we don't have a purpose, because everything is going to end up in a mess.